I am Barbara Staruk. I am the Chief Product Officer of RLDatix, which means I own the product management function, which is responsible for what the products do, what anomalies they solve, how we deploy them, how they create value for the customer's business.
Amazing. It's great to have you here. And RLDatix is global. Where are you based?
I am, despite my very heavy accent, I am based in London, actually. So I moved to London about 20 years ago.
Yes.
Been in healthcare technology my entire life. I came for 6 months, needed a life change. I'd grown up in and around Boston and the East Coast of Massachusetts, went to university in New Hampshire, and realized that I was pretty close to spending my whole life in Boston if I wasn't careful. So I thought I'd try 6 months somewhere else. The company I worked for was great at the time. We were doing anesthesia and ICU software. We just started looking at the ability to expand into the UK. The UK was doing the biggest IT project of all time at the time. The UK is a single payer system, the National Health Service. And I went over, I left my job at the company, which was managing the support department at the time, went back to implementation to implement the first hospital, and implemented that first hospital, and then just stayed, just like I forgot to come home.
There you go. And obviously a strong British accent there.
Absolutely.
That's one thing that's... Yeah.
Hello.
That's the best you can do. Great.
Yeah. 20 years later, that's all I got.
I saw your session at the start too, and it got me thinking that it would be a really, like, in the area of product and product management in a company that's evolved like RLDatix. I'd love to hear from you, like, what that journey looks like, because I guess it's products that we're looking at, and not all built from, like, they're all come from different directions, so that'd be a challenge in itself, I think.
Yeah, I think it's different origin stories, right? It's like if you come in, we have very different origin stories. Right? We have different accents, but that's only one side of it. Here, where we've come from, what our culture is, how we found success is very different. Therefore, what we think our friends and our family, or in our case, our customers value, it's all really different. We have a large portfolio that has either come from acquisition, where we bought, and intentionally is areas of the same expertise, especially in patient safety, incident management, and in workforce management. We wanted the expertise, we wanted the additional technologies, the talent, the customers, so we could really bring those things together into one cohesive portfolio. It was really, really intentional.
Yep.
But it does bring different origin stories with it. And I think just not dissimilar to our difference in our accents, our origin stories. The markets are different as well. The U.S. market is a really different system. It's obviously a multi-payer system. The motivations are slightly different. The level of innovation is different. The UK, different. And again, National Health Service, it's been established in the mid-40s, the late 40s. The Australian system is almost like a sort of child of the U.S. and the UK system. So it's not just the products. I think it's the people and that literally how the systems work are different.
Interesting. So in that context and environment, then it looks like, as you were sharing, that, you know, where you've got to now and where it's going, it looks like a much more consolidated kind of offering. Tell me more about that.
Well, I think if you think of, for all the differences we've talked about, there's a lot of similarities as well, right? And the reality is, when something happens to a patient that shouldn't have happened, there was a cause for that. There was a series of events that took place that could have been stopped. Because certainly nobody goes into the clinical environment to hurt someone, right? And to have a negative outcome. Those causes of those, literally the steps on the journey to something happening, we've been trying to fix for a long time.
No.
On the flip side, when we have nursing and medical staff in a hospital, those folks deserve to be working when they know they're working, in teams that they're familiar with, that have the skills that are needed to care for the patients that needed to care for, that they understand how their time off is going to be used, that they are able to work together as a team to get the best outcome for the patients, right? And indeed, of course, to make sure they're paid correct. Those two pieces of those chain of events that could have been stopped to a safety event, and the individual's ability to understand where they're working, who they're working with what skills to get a really good outcome, those are really common, regardless of the country, regardless of origin story, etc. And for us, bringing those two things together makes an awful lot of sense, right? But I'll say, if I go back to remember the chain of events that happens, all organizations try to figure out what has gone wrong to cause a safety event to happen. We put in policies in place. We audit those policies. We check our providers to make sure they have the skills to do the things they need to do. We do all those things to try to stop the negative thing from happening. So all we're trying to do is bring all of that together, because we know it's all one set of actions and activities to try to make sure we've got the right staff in the right place to get the best outcome for patients.
Yeah.
That's one thing, not many.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think about, this as I've been hearing customer stories in the sessions and in these conversations here, sometimes health systems might, incorrectly look at something like tools to manage clinical incidents or pay people or just workforce management as either like you just need to have like a functional tool that's just a sunk cost and that's like necessary to keep the lights on, or even just we need to do it because it's either like an insurance policy or it's just a legal requirement.
Yeah.
But, in all the examples I hear, it's like that there's so much facing towards the problem to solve for the clinicians or for the patients and all of that. It's a different shift. It's a very different product. And but that's where I think it can add a great deal of value and impact to the ecosystem. That's the kind of vibe that I'm getting from patients.
I think you're spot on. And I think the reality is, compliance as a term sounds really boring.
Yeah.
But the reason that compliance exists is those are the things that the ecosystem believes are going to help get a better outcome. Like those are actually the most interesting things. And I think, when we link everything you've heard and the sort of vibes you're hearing, been all about how do we make sure that chain of events gets interrupted? How do we use data to interrupt the chain of events, et cetera? The next thing we need to bring in is really understand more about what that patient's experiences. The healthcare system, by its very nature, is clinically focused. If you know what I mean, we get a lot of messages from clinicians, and you will have heard me said, I'm from a nursing family myself. So those are the messages that we hear. That experience with clinicians is hugely important to get a good outcome, to make sure they're supported, et cetera. But what happens to the patients is hugely important as well. Did they feel like they were listened to? Did they understand their drugs when they left the hospital? Did they understand what the signs are if something's going good or something's going poorly? Do they feel like they have support in that institution? All those things actually impact the positively or negatively the outcome. So that's the next thing you're bringing it, is moving beyond the sort of clinical set of data, which we have a lot of to stop a chain of events, and bringing in the patient and their experience to really help us stop the chain.
Yeah, got you. No, well, that's like exciting times ahead, and then thinking about like the direction that everything is going. You mentioned that's where you're heading to now in terms of that patient experience side of things. What else is going to be keeping, as we close out this conversation, what else is keeping you busy over the next 6, 12, 24? There's a lot on that pipeline there.
Making it easier on staff, like 100%. And, we talk about AI a lot. You will have heard about AI a lot. And there's a lot of good discussions, right? Really good discussions around, is it better to be used as a clinical tool, as a diagnostic tool? You can go out there and read lots of studies about the efficacy or, challenge, depending on what you think of it, of dosing and, giving actual prescriptions and that type of thing. I think the real power of AI is to try to get rid of some of the tasks that clinicians are doing today that they just don't have to do. And we have a luxury in this position because we're not a clinical solution, right? I mean, people are not running medications. They are not running labs. They are not radiology diagnostics. They are literally, obviously, if you're managing the safety and the staffing part of the journey, which means there's an awful lot of tasks that we can automate. And those tasks are things that still need the very talented people in the rooms around us. But there are things like, I always take it as an example, if writing a policy is like writing a job description. You could write a job description for the next person you want to bring in to replace you, you're expanding. You could do it. Yeah. It's going to be annoying. It's going to take you a while. But of course you do it. See, it's like something But if I told you I could do 80% of it and you could fix that 20% and you could get one more podcast in, that's what you'd want to do. Yeah. And that's where I see that really next big step is all the talented people that we have helping our healthcare system, taking away the stuff that they don't need to be doing to give them a starting point so that then that 20% is their real skill.
Yeah.